These are the final resting places of 50 supermodels and cover girls whose careers spanned 5 decades of runways and magazine covers. Talitha Getty, the Dutch-born bohemian-style icon whose Marrakesh-inspired look defined 1960s and early 1970s fashion, died July 11, 1971, age 30, of a heroin overdose in Rome. Buried at Rome's Cimitero Flaminio in Italy, far from the London and Moroccan scenes she had helped shape. Talitha's timeless caftans and free-spirited elegance influenced generations of designers, and Yves Saint Laurent famously said she and her husband created the perfect image of a certain kind of modern romantic beauty. Her grave in Rome is a quiet destination for fashion pilgrims. Anne St. Marie, the American cover girl who reigned as one of the most photographed fashion faces of the 1950s and 1960s, died December 15, 1974, age 44, in a hotel fire in New York City. Buried in a private family ceremony, St. Marie appeared on more than 100 Vogue and Harper's Bazaar covers and worked with every major photographer of her era. Her tragic and largely forgotten death in a Manhattan hotel is one of the most haunting endings in mid-century modeling history. Barbara Babe Paley, the immaculate American socialite and Vogue fashion editor, whose personal style made her one of the most emulated women of her generation, died July 6, 1978, age 63, of lung cancer. Buried at Kensico Cemetery in Valhalla, New York. Truman Capote called Babe one of the 2 or 3 most beautiful women he had ever known, and her sense of style is still referenced by designers to this day. Her grave in the Hudson Valley honors a woman who defined mid-century American elegance. Danielle Luna, the trailblazing African-American model who became the first black woman to appear on the cover of British Vogue in 1966, died May 17, 1979, age 33, of a drug-related heart attack in Rome. Buried in a private ceremony in Rome, Italy, the city she had adopted as her home, Luna broke countless barriers in the fashion industry and paved the way for every black model who followed. Her grave in Rome is a sacred destination for those honoring the woman who first crossed a color line the industry had long refused to admit. Wilhelmina Cooper, the Dutch-American cover model turned agency founder who created one of the most powerful modeling agencies in the world, died March 1, 1980, age 40, of lung cancer. Buried at Ferncliff Cemetery in Hartsdale, New York. Cooper appeared on 28 Vogue covers before founding the agency that still bears her name and that has represented some of the biggest supermodels in history. Her grave at the famous Westchester Cemetery honors a woman who transformed the modern fashion business from both sides of the camera. Dorothy Stratton, the Playboy Playmate of the year 1980, who was on the verge of major mainstream stardom, died August 14, 1980, age 20, murdered by her estranged husband in Los Angeles, buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles. Stratton had just filmed roles for Peter Bogdanovich and Bob Fosse when her life was violently cut short. Her grave at Westwood is one of the most quietly heartbreaking resting places in all of Los Angeles, a permanent memorial to a young woman whose promise was destroyed by the man who claimed to love her. Grace Kelly, the Oscar-winning actress and former CoverGirl model who became Princess Grace of Monaco, died September 14, 1982, age 52, in a car accident on the winding roads above the Mediterranean. Buried at St. Nicholas Cathedral in Monacoville, Monaco. Kelly began her career as a top New York fashion model before becoming one of the most photographed women in the world. Her tomb in the cathedral of her adopted country is one of the most visited royal and celebrity resting places in all of Europe. Gia Karangi, the Philadelphia-born model widely considered the first true American supermodel, died November 18, 1986, age 26, of AIDS-related complications, one of the first American women to publicly die of the disease. Buried at Sunset Memorial Park in Feasterville, Pennsylvania. Gia rose from a rough childhood to become one of the most photographed models in the world before drug addiction destroyed her career and her life. Her grave outside Philadelphia is a haunting pilgrimage site for those who have watched the film about her life. Sunny Harnett, the elegant American cover girl who was one of the most photographed models of the 1950s and 1960s, died July 30th, 1987, age 63, of breast cancer. Buried in Southampton, New York, near her longtime home in the Hamptons. Harnett appeared in the famous Richard Avedon photograph of models in evening gowns at the Casino Le Touquet, one of the most iconic fashion images of the 20th century. Her grave on Long Island honors a face that defined an entire era of American elegance. Dovima, the impossibly graceful American model whose 1955 Richard Avedon photograph Dovima with elephants remains one of the most famous fashion images of all time, died May 3, 1990, age 62, of cancer, buried in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where she had spent her final years. Dovima was the highest-paid model of the 1950s and worked with every major fashion photographer of her time. Her grave in Florida honors a woman whose ethereal beauty made her Avedon's most iconic muse. Chrissy Taylor, the younger sister of supermodel Nikki Taylor and a rising cover model in her own right, died July 2, 1995, age 17, of an undiagnosed asthma condition combined with an over-the-counter medication reaction. Buried in Florida, the state where the Taylor sisters had grown up. Chrissy had already appeared on the covers of Seventeen and Mademoiselle before her sudden death at 17. Her grave in Florida is a heartbreaking destination for fans who mourn the loss of one of the youngest promising faces of the 1990s fashion world. Margot Hemingway, the 6-foot statuesque cover girl and granddaughter of author Ernest Hemingway, died July 1, 1996, age 41, by suicide. Buried at Ketchum Cemetery in Ketchum, Idaho, near the grave of her legendary grandfather. Margot was the first model in history to sign a $1 million cosmetics contract, and her Fabergé Babe advertisements made her one of the biggest fashion stars of the 1970s. Her grave beneath the Sawtooth Mountains is a sad and quietly meaningful destination. Jeffrey Aquilon, one of the first true male supermodels whose square-jawed presence defined 1980s menswear editorial, died November 24, 1997, age 40, of a heart attack, buried in a private ceremony in California. Aquilon appeared on countless GQ covers and was one of the most photographed male models of his generation. His grave honors a pioneer whose face helped establish male modeling as a serious profession alongside its female counterpart. Jean Patchett, the elegant American cover girl whose 1949 Erwin Blumenfeld cover of Vogue is considered one of the most iconic magazine covers ever printed, died January 22, 2002, age 75. Buried in a private ceremony in San Diego, California. Patchett was one of the top Vogue models of the post-war era and worked closely with photographer Irving Penn on some of the most beautiful fashion images of the century. Her grave in Southern California honors a face that defined mid-century sophistication. Susie Parker, the flame-haired American beauty who was arguably the first true celebrity supermodel of the 20th century, died May 3, 2003, age 70, of kidney failure, buried in Montecito, California. Parker was the highest-paid model in the world during the 1950s and appeared on more than 70 magazine covers in a single year at the peak of her career. Her grave in the exclusive Santa Barbara enclave honors a woman whose fiery beauty and personality made her a genuine international star. CZ Guest, the American socialite, garden writer, and Vogue cover model whose classic style made her one of the great fashion icons of her generation, died November 8, 2003, age 83, of ovarian cancer, buried in Old Westbury, New York on Long Island. Guest was equally at home in the pages of American Vogue and on the polo fields of Palm Beach, and her natural blonde elegance influenced generations of American women. Her grave on Long Island honors a woman who defined an entire style of understated East Coast glamour. Anna Nicole Smith, the Playboy Playmate of the Year turned Guess Jeans supermodel whose life became one of the most publicized in modern celebrity culture, died February 8, 2007, age 39, of an accidental prescription drug overdose. Buried at Lakeview Memorial Gardens in Nassau, Bahamas, beside her son Daniel, who had died just months before. Her grave in the Caribbean stands as a heartbreaking coda to one of the most publicly tragic lives in modern entertainment. Betty Page, the queen of pinup and one of the most photographed women of the 20th century, died December 11, 2008, age 85, of a heart attack following pneumonia. Cremated, with her ashes given to her family and later scattered. Page was the definitive American pinup model of the 1950s and became a cult figure whose distinctive black bangs are still endlessly imitated today. Her memory lives in every retro-inspired photo shoot and every pinup-influenced tattoo across the modern world. Doll Kim, the promising young South Korean supermodel who had walked for every major fashion house in Paris and Milan, died November 19, 2009, age 20, by suicide in her Paris apartment, buried in South Korea in a private family ceremony. Kim's blog and her honest writing about the isolating pressures of the fashion industry became a cultural touchstone for young models around the world. Her grave in Korea honors a thoughtful young woman whose loss forced the industry to reckon with its treatment of its youngest workers. Farrah Fawcett, the golden-haired Charlie's Angels star whose 1976 red swimsuit poster became one of the best-selling posters of all time, died June 25, 2009, age 62, of cancer, buried at Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles. Fawcett began her career as a magazine cover model before becoming a television icon, and her feathered hairstyle remains one of the most imitated looks of the entire decade. Her grave at Westwood is one of the most visited resting places in all of Los Angeles. Isabelle Caro, the French model whose emaciated body appeared in a controversial anti-anorexia billboard campaign, died November 17, 2010, age 28, of complications from her lifelong eating disorder. Buried in a private ceremony in France, Caro used her platform in the final years of her life to speak openly about the deadly disease that would eventually take her, and her memoir and public advocacy helped save countless young lives. Her grave honors a woman who used her own suffering to try to change the industry. Anita Ekberg, the Swedish-born actress and model whose fountain scene in Fellini's La Dolce Vita became one of the most iconic images in cinema history, died January 11, 2015, age 83, of complications from long-term illness. Buried in a private ceremony in Italy, the country she had adopted as her home, Ekberg was Miss Sweden 1950 before becoming a Hollywood pinup and later a European art film star. Her grave in Italy honors a woman whose curvaceous beauty defined a distinct European ideal for a generation. Fiona Campbell-Walter, the elegant British model who was one of the top faces of the 1950s before marrying into the fabulously wealthy Thyssen-Bornemisza family, died August 21, 2020, age 88, buried in a private ceremony in Switzerland. Campbell-Walter appeared on countless British Vogue covers during her peak years and was widely considered one of the great beauties of post-war British high society. Her grave in the Swiss countryside honors a woman whose face defined an era. Ivana Trump, the Czech-born model and businesswoman who was one of the most recognizable social figures of the 1980s and 1990s, died July 14, 2022, age 73, in an accidental fall at her Manhattan home. Buried at Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster, New Jersey. Trump had been a top fashion model in Canada and Europe before her marriage to Donald Trump made her a New York society icon. Her grave on the Trump family golf course honors a woman whose glamour defined a particular era of Manhattan opulence. Jane Birkin, the English actress, singer, and style icon whose namesake Hermès handbag became the most coveted accessory in fashion history, died July 16, 2023, age 76. Buried at Montparnasse Cemetery in Paris, France. Birkin's effortless bohemian style and her personal life with Serge Gainsbourg made her one of the most influential fashion figures of the 20th century. Her grave in the storied Parisian cemetery honors a woman whose casual elegance is still endlessly imitated today. Anouk Aimée, the French actress and fashion icon whose face graced countless magazine covers across 7 decades, died June 18, 2024, age 92, buried at Montparnasse Cemetery in Paris, France, where so many of her contemporaries also rest. Aimée had begun modeling as a teenager before her breakout role in A Man and a Woman made her an international sensation. Her grave in Paris honors a woman whose quiet, mysterious beauty defined a very specific kind of French elegance for generations. Peggy Moffat, the American model and muse of designer Rudi Gernreich, whose signature Vidal Sassoon haircut and dramatic kabuki-inspired eye makeup made her the ultimate face of 1960s mod fashion, died February 15, 2024, age 86, buried in a private ceremony in Los Angeles. Moffat was the model who wore Gernreich's controversial topless monokini in the famous 1964 photographs, one of the most talked-about fashion moments of the decade. Her grave in Los Angeles honors a woman whose face defined the youthquake era of American style.